Gentlemen, if you're an older man dating a younger woman, never try to impress her with money, act younger than you are, or control her life. Respect her mind, her choices, and her space. Maturity is attractive. Use it wisely. Be her equal, not her teacher or savior. Confidence, not control. There's a common mistake many older men make when interacting with younger women. They try to lead with their wallet. They assume that financial success, luxury items, or extravagant experiences will instantly win her admiration or affection. But what they fail to understand is that money, while it may grab attention for a moment, cannot create genuine connection. It may open doors, but it doesn't build relationships. When an older man tries to impress a young woman solely through material displays, it sends a very specific message that he sees her as someone who can be bought, or someone who should be impressed by surface-level power. The dynamic becomes transactional. And here's the truth. Most young women, especially those who value themselves, can see through this tactic instantly. They might entertain the attention for a while, but deep down, they know when a man is relying on wealth because he lacks something deeper: emotional intelligence, depth, character, or even confidence. When a man throws money around in an attempt to impress, he unknowingly exposes a void. It becomes less about generosity and more about compensation. You see, mature men who are truly secure don't lead with what they have. They lead with who they are. There's a difference between being financially stable and making your finances your personality. A young woman isn't looking for your bank balance. She's watching how you talk, how you treat people, how you make decisions, how you carry yourself in silence. She wants to know if you're grounded, if you listen to her, if you respect her as an equal. Flashing cash might buy a dinner, but it won't buy her mind. It won't keep her attention, and it certainly won't earn her respect. A lot of older men confuse being a provider with being impressive. Yes, stability is attractive. Yes, ambition is appealing. But those things only matter when they come from a place of authenticity and not manipulation. If a man tries to use money as bait, he will most likely attract someone who's interested in the bait, not the man. And when the bait stops coming, so does she. Relationships that start with power imbalance, where one person feels indebted or inferior, rarely last. They're not built on trust, vulnerability, or shared values. They're built on performance. And eventually, both parties grow tired of the show. The saddest part is that many older men don't even realize they're doing it. They've been conditioned to believe that youth values luxury over substance, that being older means you need to compensate for your age. But age is not a flaw. It's a feature. It's supposed to come with emotional maturity, clarity, calmness, experience. When a man embraces those qualities, he doesn't need to prove anything. He becomes attractive not because of what he owns, but because of how he thinks and feels. Young women today are not naive. They are building careers, gaining education, traveling, and expanding their own financial power. They aren't looking for a lifeline, they're looking for a partner. When a man tries too hard to impress with money, it also subtly insults her. It says, "I assume you need this," or "You should be impressed by this." And no woman wants to feel like someone thinks they're for sale. She wants to feel seen, heard, understood, not bought. She wants you to be curious about her mind, not just confident in your assets. There is also a danger in creating an expectation that every interaction must be lavish. Because once that bar is set, it's hard to lower it. Suddenly, conversations without gifts seem less meaningful. Time spent without spending feels empty. And this isn't just exhausting, it's unsustainable. True relationships thrive in the simple, in the honest, in the quiet. They grow in spaces where both people show up as they are, without pretense or performance. So instead of showing her what you can buy, show her who you are. Show her your values. Show her your integrity. Be present when she speaks. Make her feel like she matters without spending a dime. Compliment her intelligence, not just her beauty. Invite her into meaningful conversations, not just expensive restaurants. That is where real connection begins. And that is something money can never buy. One of the most common traps older men fall into when dealing with younger women is trying to behave as if they're still in their 20s. They start dressing like the younger crowd, using slang that doesn't quite fit, overcompensating with trendy habits, and attempting to blend into a generation they no longer belong to. This effort, while possibly well-intentioned, often comes off as inauthentic, awkward, and sometimes even desperate. What it truly does is diminish the one thing older men actually have going for them: maturity. Youth is not something you can recapture by mimicking it. It's a phase of life with its own energy, mindset, and rhythm, and pretending to be something you're not makes you look like you're trying too hard. Most young women are not looking for an older man to be another peer in their social group. They are intrigued by the contrast, by the stability, the wisdom, the confidence that often comes with age. But the moment a man starts acting like one of the boys, that intrigue fades quickly. There's also a fine line between staying youthful in spirit and trying to be young again. There's nothing wrong with enjoying life, being adventurous, trying new things, or staying fit. But when it becomes a performance, when every conversation turns into a comparison between how things used to be and how you're still with it, you start to lose your presence. You're no longer grounded in who you are. You're trying to be someone you've already outgrown. Young women can sense authenticity. They know when someone is comfortable in their own skin and when someone is pretending. And what might seem like an attempt to connect actually creates a disconnect. Imagine a man in his late 40s trying to attend every nightclub, quote TikTok trends, and compete with younger men in their dating style. It's not charming, it's confusing. It doesn't make you relatable. It makes you appear unsure of your identity. What's more, acting like you're still in your 20s often signals that you haven't truly embraced where you are in life. It sends a message that you fear aging, fear irrelevance, and are possibly clinging to a chapter that's already closed. That's not attractive. It's insecure. Women, regardless of age, are drawn to men who are sure of themselves. Confidence isn't found in pretending to be someone else. It's rooted in knowing who you are and standing firmly in it. There's a certain dignity that comes with embracing your age, a calmness, a presence, and when you lean into that instead of running from it, you become far more magnetic. Instead of trying to impress a young woman by being like her friends, impress her by being the one man who doesn't try to fit in. Be the one who brings a different perspective, who listens more than he talks, who doesn't compete because he doesn't need to. That kind of energy is rare, and it's powerful. Trying to act younger also changes the energy dynamic in the relationship. When an older man pretends to be younger, he often begins to seek validation in the wrong places. He starts asking for reassurance, trying to match energy levels he can't sustain, and putting pressure on both himself and the woman to keep up an illusion. Relationships built on performance and pretense aren't sustainable. At some point, the mask slips, and what's left behind may feel disappointing if it's vastly different from the act. It's important to remember that being older is not a flaw. In fact, it can be your greatest strength, if you let it. Your life experience, emotional intelligence, decision-making ability, and the calm that comes with self-awareness. These are the qualities that many young women crave, not another guy trying to prove he can party all night or keep up with every trend. If she wanted that, she'd date someone her own age. And when an older man fully embraces where he is in life, without pretending or overcompensating, it shows. It's felt. He becomes the kind of man who doesn't need to say much to be heard. The kind of man who doesn't chase attention because he knows his presence is enough. The kind of man who's not intimidated by youth because he understands his value lies not in being young, but in being grounded, wise, and unapologetically himself. One of the most subtle yet damaging things an older man can do when interacting with a younger woman is to undermine her intelligence or dismiss her experiences. It may not always be intentional. In fact, it often comes cloaked in what appears to be harmless advice, gentle correction, or a "let me teach you something" attitude. But make no mistake, This behavior can quickly create a power imbalance, erode trust, and make a young woman feel unseen and undervalued. It's important to remember that age does not automatically equal superiority. While experience comes with time, wisdom isn't measured by the years you've lived. It's measured by how much you've learned from them. And in today's world, many young women are incredibly insightful, well-informed, emotionally intelligent, and independent thinkers. They've navigated their own set of challenges, gained their own perspectives, and developed their own voice. To disregard that simply because she's younger is not only disrespectful, it's short-sighted. Older men sometimes fall into the trap of assuming they know better just because they've lived longer. But this mindset is dangerous. It creates a dynamic where one person's opinions, choices, and knowledge are constantly questioned or corrected. This can look like constantly interrupting her to offer a better way to think about something, questioning the validity of her stories, or treating her ambitions as cute rather than serious. It might even manifest in subtle tones, like being surprised when she makes a valid point, or congratulating her on common sense, as though it's rare. Where there's an age difference, emotional equality becomes even more crucial. If a man constantly positions himself as the wiser, smarter, more capable person, the dynamic becomes more like teacher and student than partners. And over time, this wears down the intimacy. Real closeness happens when both people feel safe to be themselves, to share freely without being corrected, and to be respected as equals, regardless of age. What often gets overlooked is that intelligence isn't just academic or professional. It includes emotional awareness, intuition, adaptability, creativity, and resilience. Many young women have emotional depth that far surpasses their years. They might understand themselves in ways that older men haven't yet explored. They might handle conflict with more grace, lead with more compassion, or have a sharper sense of purpose. So when a man assumes she has nothing to teach him, he robs himself of the chance to grow. There's also something incredibly attractive about a man who listens, really listens. Not the kind of listening that waits to reply, but the kind that seeks to understand. When a younger woman shares her thoughts or experiences, she's offering you a window into her world, and how you respond tells her everything she needs to know. Are you interested in who she is, or are you only interested in molding her into who you think she should be? A woman doesn't need you to be her guide. She needs you to be her witness, to hold space for her intellect, to ask thoughtful questions, to challenge her only when it's respectful and balanced, not because you want to feel superior. She wants to know you respect her journey, even if it doesn't look like yours, that you can value her voice, even if it's different from what you've known, that you see her not as someone you're educating, but as someone you're learning with. The truth is, when you honor her intelligence, you elevate the relationship. You move from dominance to partnership. You begin to build a foundation based on mutual respect, not hierarchy. And that's what creates lasting connection. Because a woman who feels mentally and emotionally respected will open up to you in ways that surface-level relationships never reach. So if you're an older man engaging with a younger woman, don't assume you know better. Assume there's something you haven't learned yet. And maybe, just maybe, she's the one who can teach it to you. One of the most common missteps older men make when engaging with younger women is the compulsion to control or teach them how to live. It may come from a place of experience, or even what they perceive as love or protection, but the truth is, it rarely lands that way. To a younger woman, this behavior often feels patronizing, restrictive, and even suffocating. She doesn't want a father figure. She doesn't need a life coach. And she certainly isn't looking for someone to rewrite her journey according to their own standards. When a man assumes the role of a mentor rather than a partner, he shifts the energy from connection to correction. He starts to believe that his way of thinking, behaving, or living is the ideal path, and subtly or overtly tries to steer her decisions to match that mold. It could be as simple as telling her which career path to take, what friends to avoid, how to dress, or what opinions are too immature. And while on the surface it may appear like he's being helpful or supportive, what he's really doing is asserting control under the guise of care. What makes this particularly damaging is that it chips away at her sense of autonomy. Every time you correct her choices or question her instincts, you plant doubt where confidence could have grown. You begin to train her to second-guess herself, to seek your approval before trusting her own voice. That's not empowerment, it's subtle domination, and over time it doesn't foster intimacy, it creates distance. She doesn't feel safe to be fully herself. Instead, she feels the need to shrink, to perform, to adjust herself, just to avoid your disapproval. Let's be honest, most younger women are not looking for someone to manage their lives. They are looking for someone to walk alongside them, someone who respects their individuality, even if it doesn't align with traditional values or your personal beliefs. They are navigating their own era in a world that is vastly different from the one you grew up in. Technology, culture, gender roles, and the very definitions of success and fulfillment have evolved. So what worked for you might not work for her, and that's okay. The goal isn't to create a carbon copy of your life. It's to support her in building her own. The other side of this teaching dynamic is the ego boost it gives the man. It's a way to feel needed, to maintain a sense of power in the relationship. But here's the truth. If you need to feel smarter or more capable in order to feel secure in the relationship, then it's not a relationship based on love. It's based on hierarchy, and hierarchy breeds resentment, not intimacy. A healthy connection is built on mutual respect. That means allowing space for her to make mistakes, to learn through experience, and to define her values on her own terms. It means holding back the urge to fix her life just because you think you know better. It means offering support when asked, and trusting that she's capable of figuring things out, even if she takes a different route than you would. The irony is that the more you try to control or teach her, the less she trusts you. She begins to feel like you don't actually see her, but rather a version of her that fits neatly into your narrative. That doesn't feel like love. It feels like erasure. True connection begins when you start listening without always trying to solve, when you start encouraging without always directing, when you start honoring her experiences instead of overriding them. And let's not forget, younger women are often incredibly observant. They know when you're trying to mold them into something they're not. They feel it when your compliments are conditional, when your support is performance-based. They recognize when their independence threatens your sense of control. And once they see it, it's hard to unsee. So, if you truly want to connect with a younger woman, don't assume the role of a guide. Assume the role of a partner. Stand beside her, not above her. Share your experiences when invited, not imposed. Let her shape her own narrative and show her that you respect it, even when it's different from yours. That's not just emotional intelligence, that's maturity. And maturity, when paired with humility, is far more attractive than control disguised as wisdom. Over-possessiveness and jealousy are two traits that can quickly destroy the foundation of any relationship, especially when there's an age gap between an older man and a younger woman. Often, older men enter these relationships with a quiet insecurity, whether it's about their appearance, energy levels, social relevance, or fear of being replaced. Instead of acknowledging and processing those insecurities in a healthy way, they sometimes try to control the woman's environment, behavior, and choices, all in an attempt to protect the relationship. But what they're really doing is suffocating it. Possessiveness doesn't feel like love. It feels like confinement. It often starts subtly, asking too many questions about who she's with, feeling uncomfortable with her spending time around men her age, making comments about her outfits, wanting to know her whereabouts constantly, not out of concern but control. What's even more damaging is when that behavior is masked as care. I'm just worried about you. I just want to protect you. I don't trust other guys around you. It sounds sweet, but it's manipulative, because it shifts the blame away from his insecurity and places it on her freedom. When a man becomes possessive, what he's really saying is, I don't feel secure in myself or in this relationship. Instead of trusting her judgment, instead of believing in her loyalty, he starts building invisible walls around her life. He starts treating her as a possession rather than a partner. And this doesn't just cause frustration, it erodes trust. Because the message she receives is clear. He doesn't believe I'm capable of making good choices without his supervision. Jealousy, too, is deeply rooted in insecurity. Especially for older men in relationships with younger women, there's a common fear. What if she finds someone younger, more attractive, or more in tune with her lifestyle? That fear, while human, becomes toxic when it dictates behavior. The constant suspicion, the comparison to other men, the interrogations after a night out, it doesn't keep her close. It pushes her away. No woman wants to feel like she's on trial for simply existing in the world. Healthy relationships are built on trust, not surveillance. A woman shouldn't feel like she needs to ask for permission to live her life. She shouldn't have to dim her light or cut off her friendships just to keep the peace. When a man tries to clip her wings in the name of love, she doesn't feel loved. She feels imprisoned. What's often overlooked is that possessiveness and jealousy are not signs of love. They're signs of fear. And fear has no place in a healthy partnership. When a man is secure in himself, he doesn't need to monitor his partner's every move. He knows that respect, connection, and loyalty can't be forced. They must be earned and nurtured. He's confident that if she's with him, it's because she wants to be, not because she's trapped. Another damaging effect of possessiveness is that it starts to distort the woman's self-worth. She begins to wonder, why is he always so suspicious of me? Did I do something wrong? Over time, she may begin to doubt herself, question her own choices, and lose touch with her identity, all in an effort to avoid conflict. That kind of emotional strain is exhausting, and it builds silent resentment, because no one wants to constantly explain themselves just to maintain peace. Instead of guarding the relationship with control, guard it with trust. Build a foundation where both partners feel free and secure, not watched and judged. A younger woman will respect and cherish a man who gives her space, who celebrates her independence, and who trusts her to make decisions for herself. That kind of trust doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you stronger, because it creates a bond that's rooted in respect, not fear. The irony is that the more secure a man is, the less he needs to control. And the less he controls, the more naturally respect and loyalty grow. A woman feels most connected to a man who trusts her, who empowers her, and who isn't threatened by her freedom. She feels safest with someone who sees her not as a risk, but as a capable, committed partner. So, if you're an older man in a relationship with a younger woman, don't let fear dictate your actions. Don't try to protect the relationship by caging her spirit. Love her with openness, not chains. Because if she truly values you, she'll stay, not because she has to, but because she wants to. Bringing up age repeatedly in a relationship, especially when you're the older man with a younger woman, may seem like light-hearted humor or casual commentary, but it can quietly chip away at the emotional connection. What might start as a few jokes about being old, not keeping up, or back in my day, quickly turns into a recurring theme that places age at the center of the relationship dynamic. This constant highlighting of the age gap often reveals more about your own insecurities than it does about the relationship itself. When you make age the main topic, whether through jokes, sarcastic comments, or frequent comparisons, you're creating unnecessary emotional distance. It stops being a relationship between two people and becomes a relationship between an older guy and a younger girl. That framing can feel limiting, awkward, and sometimes even patronizing. She didn't choose to be with you just to be constantly reminded of how much older you are. She chose you because something about your presence, your character, or your energy resonated with her. By constantly bringing up the age gap, you overshadow that deeper connection with surface-level noise. Often, older men use humor about age as a shield. They assume that if they make the jokes first, they'll beat everyone else to it. But in doing so, they keep drawing attention to the very thing they feel insecure about. It's a subtle way of apologizing for being older without actually saying the words. And while it might earn a few laughs at first, it can also make the younger woman feel like she has to constantly reassure you, tiptoe around your feelings, or pretend not to notice your discomfort. Over time, this creates a one-sided emotional burden. She didn't come into the relationship to be your therapist, your cheerleader, or the one who constantly affirms that age is just a number. That responsibility shouldn't fall on her. Instead, what she needs and what you need is confidence. Confidence in who you are, in the experiences you bring, and in the emotional maturity you offer. When you're confident in your identity, you don't feel the need to keep addressing the age difference because it simply isn't a threat to your connection. Another unintended consequence of focusing too much on age is that it subtly reinforces the idea that your relationship is somehow abnormal or temporary. Every time you make a joke about being too old for something or not understanding young people, you reinforce a narrative that you're from a different world and that those worlds aren't supposed to mix. That kind of mental separation can breed doubt. It might make her question whether the relationship has a future or whether you'll truly be able to relate to her as time goes on. The truth is, a successful relationship, regardless of age, requires both people to meet each other with respect, openness, and shared values. Constantly pointing out the age gap interrupts that sense of equality. It sets up an invisible hierarchy or a division that doesn't need to be there. You're not the older guy dating a younger girl. You're two individuals choosing each other, despite differences, because of connection, not in spite of it. It's also worth noting that humor about age can backfire. Jokes about being too old for this, or mockingly calling her a baby, may seem playful, but they can leave an emotional sting. What's said in jest can sometimes plant real doubt, especially when repeated over and over. It can make her feel like she's constantly having to bridge a gap or prove her maturity. And the moment someone feels like they need to prove themselves in a relationship, the balance starts to shift from connection to performance. Instead of fixating on the number, focus on what truly matters, how you treat each other, how you communicate, how safe and seen she feels in your presence. Celebrate your shared interests, explore new experiences together, and let the age difference fade into the background where it belongs. Because the moment you stop making age the headline of the story, you both get to fully enjoy the depth of the relationship. You don't need to apologize for your age. You don't need to constantly joke about it to make it okay. It is okay when you own it without insecurity. Show up as a man who is comfortable with himself, who sees his years as a gift, not a flaw. That grounded energy is far more attractive than any self-deprecating humor could ever be. When an older man engages with a younger woman, one of the most dangerous and damaging mistakes he can make is rushing intimacy or expecting compliance simply because of his age, status, or life experience. Whether it's physical, emotional, or even conversational intimacy, pressuring her to move faster than she's ready for creates a power imbalance that can't be ignored. It might not be overtly aggressive, but even subtle pressure, masked as charm, persistence, or romantic persuasion, can leave her feeling cornered, unheard, or emotionally manipulated. The foundation of any healthy relationship is mutual respect, and respect means honoring her pace, her comfort level, and her boundaries, not just hearing them, but honoring them without negotiation or resistance. When a man rushes intimacy, what he's really doing is prioritizing his own desires above her emotional readiness. It's saying, I want this now, and that matters more than how you feel. That's not connection, that's coercion, and no woman, regardless of age, deserves to feel pressured into closeness she hasn't chosen freely. For some older men, there's a belief that being older gives them the upper hand in wisdom or emotional maturity, and with that comes an expectation of compliance. They assume that because they can offer stability, experience, or even financial security, A younger woman should naturally go along with their timeline. But this belief is deeply flawed. It turns the relationship into a transaction, where the younger woman is expected to give something in exchange for what the man brings to the table. And the moment that exchange becomes implied or expected, the relationship stops being about genuine connection and starts being about entitlement. Entitlement kills intimacy, because intimacy requires trust, and trust only grows when both people feel safe, seen, and free. Rushing it, forcing it, or expecting it as a reward for attention, dates, or gifts only builds tension. She may go along with it for a while to keep the peace, but beneath the surface, resentment starts brewing. And once resentment enters a relationship, it's almost impossible to reverse. There's also the issue of emotional pressure. Some men don't rush intimacy physically, but emotionally they dive in too fast. They pour on affection, big promises, heavy expectations, and declarations of love far too soon. While it may feel passionate, it often comes off as overwhelming and unbalanced. Instead of creating connection, it creates confusion. A younger woman might start to feel like she has to match that intensity, even when she's still figuring out how she feels. That's not fair to her. She's entitled to her own emotional journey without having to match yours on command. It's important to understand that intimacy, true intimacy, can't be demanded or scheduled. It must be earned, and earned through patience, consistency, emotional safety, and mutual understanding. Every woman, no matter her age, wants to feel like her boundaries are respected, her choices matter, and her feelings are valid. When a man gives her that space, without pressure, without guilt-tripping, and without constantly checking in to see if she's ready yet, she begins to relax. And when she feels safe, trust grows. And with trust comes natural intimacy, the kind that's lasting and meaningful. Unfortunately, many older men confuse confidence with pressure. They think being assertive means pushing the pace, but real confidence isn't about control, it's about restraint. It's about being comfortable enough with yourself that you don't need to rush anything. It's about showing her that you're secure enough to let things unfold organically, and that you respect her enough to wait until she's ready, not when it's convenient for you. It's also crucial to recognize that just because someone says yes doesn't always mean they feel free. Sometimes women say yes to things just to avoid conflict, awkwardness, or disappointment, and while it might look like consent, it doesn't feel like it. You have to pay attention to more than words. Read her tone, her energy, her comfort level. And if there's ever uncertainty, the right move is to slow down, not speed up. Being older isn't about having more power. It's about having more wisdom. And wisdom means knowing that true intimacy can't be forced. It can't be earned through persistence, gifts, or manipulation. It has to come from a place of trust, freedom, and choice. If a younger woman chooses to be close to you emotionally or physically, let it be because she wants to, not because she feels she has to. That's what makes it real. And real connection is always worth waiting for. One of the most subtle but common mistakes older men make when involved with younger women is the tendency to take on the role of a rescuer, whether it's offering to fix her financial situation, guide her career path, or save her from relationships or decisions he thinks are beneath her. The underlying message becomes, "You need me to make your life better." While this may seem like care or protection on the surface, in reality, it strips her of agency and creates an unbalanced, often unhealthy dynamic. Many older men, perhaps with the best of intentions, step into a relationship assuming they know what's best. They view a younger woman's challenges or uncertainties as opportunities to step in and take control, to show their value by solving problems. But what this actually communicates is that he sees her as incapable of managing her own life, as someone incomplete or broken, someone who needs to be fixed. That is not love, and it's certainly not respect. Younger women are not projects. They're not blank slates waiting for guidance or rescue. Many of them are navigating their lives with courage, building careers, defining their values, exploring their identities, and learning through their own experiences. When a man steps in and tries to take over or save her, he unintentionally sends a message that her current life, as it is not good enough. It's a form of subtle condescension, even if it's dressed up as generosity. There's a difference between supporting someone and trying to rescue them. Support says, "I see you, I trust you, and I'm here if you need me." Rescue says, "You're lost, and I know the way." One is empowering, the other is controlling. When a man positions himself as the solution to a younger woman's life, he stops being a partner and becomes a savior. And that dynamic is not only unbalanced, it's unsustainable. Relationships built on the savior complex often carry invisible debts. The woman begins to feel like she owes him something for the help, the stability, the guidance. That sense of obligation can quickly turn into guilt, silence, or resentment. She may feel uncomfortable voicing her own needs or disagreements because she's afraid of appearing ungrateful. Over time, this doesn't create closeness. It creates emotional distance and internal pressure. Some men adopt this rescue role out of a desire to feel needed. It boosts their ego. It gives them a sense of importance and power. But genuine connection doesn't come from being someone's hero. It comes from being someone's equal. A woman doesn't want a man who looks down at her life and tries to upgrade it. She wants someone who looks across at her, sees her strength, and stands with her through it, not above her. Even if a younger woman is going through a tough season, financial struggle, emotional turmoil, or confusion about her future, it's not your job to swoop in and fix it. Your job is to hold space, to listen without judgment, to encourage her growth without trying to direct it, to offer help only when it's asked for, and even then, to do it in a way that reinforces her independence, not her dependence on you. It's also important to understand that rescuing often comes with an invisible expectation: compliance. A man who steps in to help might unconsciously expect the woman to then live by his values, make choices he approves of, or show appreciation in ways that serve his needs. But true love doesn't come with strings. If your generosity is only offered in exchange for control or loyalty, it's not really love, it's manipulation. The most respectful thing you can do for a younger woman you care about is to trust her process. Let her stumble and learn. Let her make decisions you wouldn't make. Let her find her own power. And if you truly care about her, you won't try to build her life for her. You'll stand beside her as she builds it herself. When a woman knows that you see her as whole, not broken, not in need of saving, but strong and capable just as she is, she's far more likely to open up, to connect, and to invite you into her world in a real and lasting way. That kind of relationship isn't built on saving. It's built on seeing her for who she is, not who you want to mold her into. That is where true intimacy begins. In the end, what truly matters in any relationship, especially one where age differences exist, is mutual respect, emotional maturity, and authenticity. A younger woman doesn't need a man to prove his worth through money, control, or outdated authority. She doesn't need to be taught, saved, or managed. She needs to be seen, heard, and valued for who she is, not who someone thinks she should be. The moment an older man stops trying to impress, control, or guide from above, and instead chooses to connect from a place of grounded confidence and respect, the relationship transforms. Real connection isn't built on age, it's built on trust, presence, emotional safety, and equality. So, let go of the ego, stop performing, and start listening. That's where the real power lies, not in being the older man, but in being the wiser one,